So in this video, I'm going to be going over how to use Lingua as a teacher. So the first thing you want to do is click the sign up button to make your account. And then create the account. So now that you're in, let's start by creating a new course. I'm going to choose Spanish and year 3. So you have this option here to enable region-specific grammar. So that's if you want pronouns and grammar forms such as vos and vosotros included in the chat discussions. And then you also have the option to set how many translations you want students to be able to have for certain words in each chat assignment. So I'm going to just set it to 3, and then I'm going to add a description, and then we're going to add the course here. So now that we've created our course, let's open it up. And now the first thing we need to do is give the student join code to the students. You can just copy it and paste it wherever. Now let's start by creating an assignment. There are a few different options you have. Let's start by creating a chat assignment. So let's add the assignment title. We can also specify the start date and due date by clicking on this little calendar button here and opening up the calendar. For due date, if you leave it blank, that means the assignment has no deadline and it's open indefinitely. Next, let's enter in the topic as well as the scenario description, key vocabulary to be used in the discussion, and grammar tenses. And we can also specify the number of exchanges. This controls how long the conversation will be. And then let's launch the assignment. So now we can see this assignment has been created here, and we see how many students have completed the assignment, are in progress, and have not completed it yet. So this is the assignment page here. You can see all the assignment details listed here. You can also edit the assignment, reset submissions for the assignment, as well as delete the assignment entirely. But the most important feature here is this demo chat feature, which is what allows you to try out the chat the way the students will interact with it. So let's try it out here. You pick your character you want to talk to, as well as the background music. Now let's talk to Sophia a little bit. And so there's one thing I want to point out here. So if a student highlights over a word like this, if you have enabled translations for this course, they can see the translation for it. They can also add it to their own personal vocab list. Now, the purpose of this demo chat feature is for you to try out the chat to see if you need to tweak anything in the instructions to make it exactly the way you intended to. Now let's return back to the assignment page. So since we don't have any student data already for this class I just created, I'm going to shift over to another class that already has some student data so we can look at the analytics aspects of Lingua. After students have completed this assignment, you can see additional details have been added here, such as average skill points earned per student. We'll go more in detail about skill points later on, but now let's take a look at performance insights. So here, you can generate insights for your students across all submissions for this assignment. So let's press the Generate Insights button, and then we see here strengths and weaknesses that students have on this assignment. On the Submissions tab, you can see which students have completed the assignment as well as which students have not started it yet. You can also see their engagement score, which we'll go more into this later on. You can see their strengths as well as what they need to improve on, and also a full report of that assignment. So here you can see those same strengths and improvements. You can also see their entire conversation transcript. And then there's this view errors and corrections feature here where you can see a full breakdown of what they said and then what errors they made, as well as the corrections for those. So now we see here that this student received a 0% on this assignment. Let's look at why. It looks like they had unsatisfactory engagement, which means they provided non-substantive responses. Let's take a look at what happened. So if students respond in English instead of the target language, if they give responses that are very short, or if they respond with responses that are completely irrelevant to the topic, then we see here that they don't get full credit. In fact, they get no credit at all. Let's look at the conversation transcript to see what happens. And then we see here that it looks like they did not contribute to the conversation. So Lingua has this extra check in here to make sure students are actually engaging and contributing to the conversation. So next, let's take a look at the course analytics tab. So this has two subtabs here. The first one is skill overview, which provides global insights across all assignments and across all students. So here we can see the overall student strengths as well as their improvement areas. And we can also update this to generate a more recent overview. And then the other tab here is the skill map tab here, where we see the students' skill points across all students here. So these skill points are basically points that they earn in each conversation based on how well they did with vocabulary, grammar, fluidity, and culture. And you see it makes a little map here. So you can see that, for example, here, it looks like students are generally weaker with grammar, but are very strong with culture. So you can see interesting patterns across your students with this map here. Next, on the Students tab, you can see all the enrolled students as well as their Lingua points, which they earn by completing assignments and quizzes. Each of their individual skill points, their strengths, and their weaknesses, as well as how many assignments they've completed, started, are still pending, and how many are overdue. You can also click this little pencil button here to remove students from the class, and then click remove over here. So now let's look at one of these students. So this is the student page. You can again see their skill points here. First, you can see the skill overview, so their overall strengths and their overall weaknesses. You can see their skill map here, which this is the skill map for that individual student. So again, we can see here they're stronger in culture. They're maybe a little bit weak with some of these other areas. And then lastly, we have the assignment tracker here, which you can see each assignment they've completed, as well as their scores and their strengths and weaknesses and full reports here. Next, I'm going to go over how to create a grammar quiz. So let's go over to this create assignment button here and click on grammar quiz. So here, let's do that. You can also set the topic or theme you want it to be about. So, and then again, start date, due date, and you can choose which grammar concepts you want to be included in this quiz. And also the number of questions, and then click this create button. So now we see here it's generating the questions, and the AI will generate the questions for you. You'll notice that all questions relate to the topic you specified. So now we see here, it generated a bunch of questions here. Now you have the option to edit these questions if you don't like them. So you can add stuff in here. And you can press the save button. You also have the option to reorder these questions. Once you're happy with the quiz, we'll press save changes. And then now you see here, the quiz is ready. We can see some statistics about the students. Now looking at a quiz which students have already submitted to, we see here the statistics are here. And then let's look at submissions, and we can see each student's score as well as a full report. And now we see here which questions they got wrong and which questions they got right. These statistics, such as these scores, will also be included in the aggregate student assignment and overall course analyses, so that you'll be able to know exactly which concepts your students are struggling with. So lastly, on the resources tab, we have two subtabs here. The first one is lessons, which is not ready yet, but eventually it's going to be interactive lessons which you can assign to your students to complete. But the other subtab is called Chat with Quetzal, where you can basically talk to Quetzal, which is an AI teaching assistant, uh, to get help explaining language concepts to your students, as well as exploring ways to improve their performance with certain things. Um, let's take a look. So first, let's ask this. And we see we get a comprehensive breakdown on how to explain subjunctive. You can also ask, you can ask in the target language, which in this case is Spanish, or you can also talk in English, like this. And we see here there's again a very thorough breakdown on how to help students with their orals. So this is a really good resource for you as a teacher. Now let's look at settings over here. This allows you to modify some of the options you set when you created the course, such as region-specific grammar and translations per assignment, as well as modify the course level, which this controls how complex the conversation chats are going to be with the AI characters. So higher numbers means that the vocabulary and length of those chats is going to be a little bit higher level, whereas lower values is more of a lower level. So you can change that over here. And you can also edit the course details that you first initialized when you created the course, and as well as delete the course. So there's one more thing I want to show here, which is this report a bug button. So if you at any time notice any sort of bug or glitch with the software, you can click this report a bug button, and then you'll be able to report a bug with this form here. If you click this account button over here, you can view your profile, which has all the courses you're teaching and some personal details. You can also delete your account over here. And when you're ready to sign out, you just click this sign out button here in profile, and you're back to the login screen. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy using Lingua. Thank you.